a mind-body approach to autoimmunity. I want to talk with you today about a new approach to autoimmunity. I'm Dr. Michael Winters, Winters Wellness, Chiropractic Redefined. The reason a new approach to autoimmunity is needed because there's so much great information out there on the metabolic side of autoimmunity, meaning how are infections involved, how are toxins involved, how is what we eat involved. That is great information. We utilize all that information and bring that into play with our practice members. However, there's a missing side. That missing side is how the brain and stress relate to autoimmunity. So I want to share some information with you. There are some great studies now on cumulative childhood trauma and autoimmune disease as an adult, and studies on stress and autoimmunity. And these are the references. You can look up these important studies, and we will have them in comments below on YouTube. Now, this first study, Cumulative Childhood Stress and Autoimmune Disease as an Adult, is a collaboration between the Centers for Disease Control and Kaiser Permanente Health Group. It's known as part of the A.C.E study, Adverse Childhood Event Study, which has spawned over 50 different papers linking childhood trauma to different health conditions as an adult. I just want to read the conclusion for this paper, which says that childhood traumatic stress increased the likelihood of hospitalization with a diagnosed autoimmune condition decades into adulthood. These findings are consistent with recent biological studies on the impact of early life stress on subsequent inflammatory responses. So the CDC, even researchers are recognizing that autoimmunity can be connected to childhood stress and trauma and lead to inflammatory responses in our body. The second paper, Stress as a Trigger for Autoimmune Disease, says many retrospective studies found that a high proportion, over 80% or up to 80% of patients reported uncommon emotional stress prior to the onset of their autoimmune disease. We see that all the time in our practice, that somebody maybe goes through a divorce and their autoimmune disease starts spinning up, or they go through a traumatic event and we see onset of autoimmune disease. So this mind-body approach is so essential and not many people are talking about it, and we have a very specific way that's not just a general relax your body type of approach. We have a very specific way where we can dive into the emotional triggers that are causing the limbic system, the fight, flight, or freeze part of our nervous system, and the protective part of our system, the part of our nervous system that would recoil if we touched a hot stove, but that part of our nervous system also recoils with emotional trauma. And we can locate the exact emotional traumas by reading your neurology, reading organ reflex points, and knowing what those mean. We can share with you when the trauma occurred, what the nature of the trauma is, and how it's impacting your body. And when we share that with you, then we can bring a statement up on the screen of our computer, so to speak, on the computer of our brain, that we're not congruent with, that doesn't match our, like, for example, it's okay to be healthy. Some people aren't congruent with that. Once we have that up on the screen of the brain, then we can do sensory stimulation to the brain and reset that. And this system also has amazing organ reflex points which correlate to different infections, bacteria, virus, parasites, fungus, different environmental things like mold, different toxins like pesticides and insecticides and household cleaners and things like that, and food sensitivities and heavy metals like mercury, aluminum, lead, and so forth. And the correlation between these organ reflex points and a patient's history and labs is stunningly accurate. So I want to dive in, though, a bit more how this mind-body connection is impacting our nervous system and our immune system and our ability to heal. So there's something in autoimmune, when you study autoimmunity, is called central tolerance. A big word, but I'm going to show you what it means here. Central tolerance is the ability of the immune system to get rid of cells that are reactive to self. If a cell is reactive to self, the thymus gland, which is behind our sternum, And the bone marrow in all of our organs should be able to get rid of those cells. If it can't, it means we've lost central tolerance. Now, the way that we lose central tolerance, a big way, is through our nervous system and through these emotional traumas. So if we look at our autonomic nervous system that controls our organs without us thinking about it, we have the yellow part of our nervous system here, the fight, flight, or freeze part of our nervous system. That engages when we have that emotional trauma that causes our nervous system to recoil. That engages and it floods the thymus and the bone marrow with sympathetic fight or flight stimulation. That shuts down the ability of the thymus and the bone marrow to get rid of cells that are reactive to self. So we have all these cells reactive to self going on, and autoimmune responses as a result tied into this emotional trauma. And the second way is that the hypothalamus control center in our brain, which has two-way communication with our immune system, with our spine, with our hormones, and with the emotional processing centers, gets involved. So as we have these stress emotional traumas, it feeds into that hypothalamus. That feeds into the immune system, but it also feeds to the pituitary and then the adrenals and makes cortisol. And cortisol, too high cortisol, that also shuts down the ability of the thymus. Most people know that when they take cortisone, they're taking it to affect their immune system. It shuts down the ability of the thymus to get rid of those cells that are reactive to self. And so we have a direct connection to the thymus and the bone marrow, and we have a connection through cortisol that's definitely impacting our ability to heal from autoimmunity. And so we need techniques that can help unlock this fight, flight, or freeze system and allow this rest, digest, and repair system shown in green to engage. And there are many studies, for example, in rheumatoid arthritis, where they're using an implantable stimulator to the vagus nerve, this rest, digest, and repair system, to help reduce inflammation. But we don't want you to have to use those kinds of drastic measures. We want you to be able to naturally get your system rewired so that that fight, flight, or system can calm down and your rest, digest, and repair system can engage. And QNRT, quantum neural reset therapy, is one of the most powerful ways to engage that rest, digest, and repair nervous system. And we see the results of that on heart rate variability dramatically improving all the time, because that's a great way to measure this nervous system that I was talking about. So when we work with two sides of the coin, this brain side and this stress emotion side, and we work with the metabolic side, then a person can truly heal. And it's not just because we're much more than dealing with an infection, or we're much more than dealing with a toxin. We also have to deal with our body's tendency to overreact to that. And when we do that, we see lives change. And you can see many of the testimonials on our website, and I would encourage you to get in our group, Drugless Support for Autoimmunity. That's a Facebook group. It's off of the Winners Wellness Center page, is where you can find it. Go to Winners Wellness Center groups, Drugless Support for Autoimmunity, and learn more about the information that we're sharing with our practice members. And we do see patients from a distance. And the thing that I wanted to cover also is we do acknowledge that metabolic side, and we have special nutritional programs and special homeopathic programs that go with the QNRT, and they work together. Because if you work with one side of the equation, you're not going to make a change totally, or the other side of the equation, you're not going to make a change. But when you work with both sides of the equation, people's heal and people's lives change. So get in our groups, get information, and we look forward to helping you. If we can help you, call our office, 270-554-2141. We have special programs for those who come from a significant distance that fly into our office and see us for 3 to 4 days or a week or more. I'm Dr. Michael Winters, Winters Wellness, Chiropractic Redefined.